everybody? Welcome back to a brand new edition of the Chris Stevens Writes YouTube show. I have not figured out a name for this show yet. I know y'all might look at the avatar with this YouTube channel, and it's called The Slight Return. That was just the name of the return, the relaunch video. I have not picked an official name for this particular YouTube show, but I definitely want to have one. So anybody's open, I'm open to suggestions. If you got any good ideas, feel free to hit me. Chris Stevens Writes, ChrisStevensWrites @gmail.com. You can also find me at the Twitter and Instagram handles in the description below. Okay, so this week's episode, well, actually, no, not this week's episode, because I have a very special announcement coming at the end of this episode about the future of this episode. Well, at least future episodes of this vlog. So this week, this episode in particular, why I keep saying this week, because apparently I just have a thing about doing multiple shows in a week because content is king. Shout out to my guy, Dr. Rick. He was the one that told me, just keep putting them out, just keep, plugging the shows out as long as you got something to talk about. And I do want to talk about that 2024. I was about to say 2014. I was thinking about 2014 because I mentioned that in another episode. But 2024, first 2 weeks, it's been smoke season. First, we had Cat Williams absolutely destroying anyone that was black and was working in comedy and in sitcoms over the last 25 years on a Club Shay Shay with Shannon Sharp. And just this past week, it extended over into my field, which is sports journalism. Now, granted, I'm not as famous as Stephen A. Smith or Jason Whitlock. Probably never will be. But I'm okay with that because I've had a nice career. Maybe, I have a second act that I don't know is coming yet. But Stephen A., he has a vlog. He has a YouTube show very much like this one. Stephen A's is a little bit, higher standard. He has backgrounds. He can hire people. This is a one-man operation. It's me in my living room, my couch behind me, but I don't like to sit on my couch because it messes with my back, which is weird. I probably need to get a new couch if it's doing that. And I know I'm going to fall asleep easily. So I'm sitting on a folding chair in front of my couch, with my laptop on, just talking to you guys. So it's not as professional as Stephen A. Smith's YouTube channel, but Stephen A. Smith's YouTube channel featured a rant for all time this past week where he finally addressed the elephant in the room. And no, that's not a diss to the man's weight. And too many people have done that already. But Jason Whitlock, who has already shown himself to be a grifter, a person who is a person that doesn't mind selling, throwing other black people under the bus to be able to advance his career and keep a bag for himself because he can't, because he's been kicked out of everywhere else. Fox Sports, ESPN multiple times. So now he's doing this thing where he's signed on to these like right-wing grifter shows where, he can say that, okay, this is what's wrong with black people. This is why you shouldn't trust black people, even though I am black. But as we've seen in the past, all skin folk ain't kinfolk. And Stephen A. Smith, man, that whole rant was legendary. Understand, because I met Stephen A. Smith once, full disclosure. I'm a person that, when I meet somebody in my career field, I can, I take it with a grain of salt. Not, because, there are people in journalism that are cool. Especially in NABJ. If you've never been to National Association of Black Journalists Convention, excuse me. If you're a journalist in PR, you should go. You should go. I'm not going to go into detail why you should go, but you should go. Trust me. Anyway, I met Stephen A. at the Unity Convention. This was 2004 because every 4 years, NABJ, National Association of Hispanic Journalists, Asian American Journalists Association, Indigenous journalists, we all meet under Unity. Of course, we're already the minorities in this field. So, of course, us meeting every 4 years together to pool our resources and to kind of, deal with, white people being in charge of everything that we do. It's very key. So this was 2004. This was in Washington, D.C. And this was before Stephen A. became Stephen A. Like, he was already on his way. He had been doing great things with the Philadelphia Inquirer for just about a decade up to that point. He was starting to his name was starting to bubble on ESPN because this is when he was like, most known for calling Kwame Brown a certified scrub. So, this is when Stephen A. was just starting to pop. And I got to meet him after one of these, what's the word I'm looking for here? What do we call those things? I don't know, man. One of the conferences or whatever. But I got a chance to meet Stephen A. one-on-one. He was really kind. He called. He was like, "Yo, what's going on, big fella?" Because I was about 350 pounds at that point. And I said, because I'm going to get into this in another episode, how close I was to dropping out of college. But I didn't drop out because I wanted to go to Unity Convention because Professor Dwayne Wickham, who of course was one of the founders of NABJ and wrote a column for USA Today for nearly 35 years. I'm now the head of the Global Journalism Studies program at Morgan State, was at Delaware State at the time. And he was like, if you guys are serious, I can help y'all get to DC. I mean, and it was like, we were all of us that worked at the Hornet, all of us that were in mass comm at the time that could go, we wanted to go. And I went and I met Stephen A. And I said, I don't know if this is for me. I love it. I'm afraid that I may not be able to break into the field. He stopped me and said, follow your heart, because anything else is just a job. And he told a story about, how he was this close to, taking a job as a bank teller before the Philadelphia Choir came through for him. Because this was when he was living in North Carolina after he graduated from Winston-Salem State. He was like, I was this close to taking a job as a bank teller before the Philadelphia Choir called. So follow your heart, because anything else is just a job. And I've kept that in mind. Granted, I've taken jobs that I didn't want to take the last few years because, well, you got to eat. And, working in a library for 4.5 years, oh, my God, I can't wait to tell you about my library experience. Whew. I almost went back. I almost went back again. But then I remembered what Stephen A. said. Follow your heart, because anything else is just a job. And Stephen A., yes, he's this boisterous personality on television, but in person, he's really low key. I was really surprised. I mean, maybe that's changed over the last 20 years. I don't know. But on that particular show, he was not low key. He was not quiet. He had enough of Jason Whitlock. He pinpointed everything all of Whitlock's failures, like disrespecting Stuart Scott, and then, coming back around to saying how influential Stuart was while Stuart was fighting cancer. Like, low blow shit. I mean, he talked about, how Whitlock would just, attack any black journalist to make himself look good. And the ESPN vertical vehicle Anscape, of course, started off as the Undefeated, which has some really good writing and culture stuff on there. I follow Justin Tinsley. I followed Justin Tinsley for years, enjoyed his work. David Dennis Jr., Martinez Johnson, so many others, over there that are doing wonderful work. And that was Whitlock's thing originally. Like, they gave Whitlock the Black Grantland because Grantland was what Bill Simmons was running. And of course, Grantland was named after Grantland Rice, one of the original famous sports writers of the day. And the ESPN wanted a Black Grantland. Somehow, in some form or another, they gave it to Jason Whitlock, the same dude who literally just tried to humiliate every black journalist in the black sports writer in his orbit. And even Jamel Hill, when she was on a Dan Le Batard show recently, she said, this dude has been, disrespectful to NABJ, to other black journalists, and he really expected black journalists to work with him. He reached out to Jamel. He reached out to Ta-Nehisi Coates. He reached out to Stephen A. They all told him to take a walk. And, when you're trying to hold yourself up as that black that's better than everybody else, of course you're going to get, pushed aside and, rightfully, don't fool with this dude. Stephen A. said something that really just chilled my shit. Like, literally, like, when somebody says this about you, you either need to do a lot of soul searching or your soul is already gone. Stephen A. said, if you get within a mile radius of Whitlock, hold yourself tight so you don't lose your soul around him. That is probably one of the most poignant shots ever fired at a human being. And it wasn't, everybody makes fun of Whitlock's weight. I mean, granted, as a big dude, as a really big dude that has come down to like a medium big dude, I don't like to body shame people. I mean, I'll get into my thing about body image and how it affects men on another episode, excuse me. But, this was something that Stephen A. could say without, going into jokes about his weight or anything like that. He just said he was a vile human being. And when somebody says that you are a vile human being and they mean it from the depths of their soul, it's not like, Stephen A. was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. Well, he did. He said, I tried to befriend this dude. He talked about the time Dan Le Batard and and basketball Hall of Famer Isaiah Thomas came up to him one day and said, "Yo, will you accept his apology?" And Stephen A said, "Y'all, if y'all value my friendship, don't talk to me about this dude again." Like, there were more catchier quotes that different outlets have grabbed, the ones that, got everybody on social media like, ooh. But those are the ones that stood out to me. I mean, yeah, Stephen A, he's a verbal, Ali. He can hit you, he can jab you, he can bob and weave. He's one of the great, he's one of the great writers, great journalists, and great, orators of his time. Yes, people are going to get on me for saying that, but I firmly, believe that. Stephen A has a way that, when he's on TV, you just listen. Whether you hate him or love him, you listen. And, for him to just, take 40 minutes out of his busy schedule to just, put Jason Whitlock in the dirt like that, I found it very impressive. And it's well overdue because Whitlock is just a moribund, decrepit, despicable human being. Like, he's nasty to other black people. He's nasty to women. He's nasty to anybody that isn't signing his paycheck, because the people that sign his paychecks depend on him to be so nasty to other people. And now it's time for that to stop. And if Stephen A is speaking out, Stephen A, another point in the quote, he said, "You've taken shots at everybody that's more successful than you." Talking about Whitlock. And that, to me, that was the burner. That was like, woo, yeah. So, and you got different people in different walks of journalism, Mike Hill, who worked at ESPN for a long time, Stan Verrett, who is still at ESPN, Kevin Frazier, who was at ESPN for a long time. Of course, now he has one of the best gigs on TV, hosting Entertainment Tonight. They all said, "We know who this man is. He's a dreadful human being." When people in the field of journalism and black journalism, it's a very small circle. NABJ and sports journalists that are black, it's a small circle. It's very small. People know somebody that knows somebody, knows somebody, knows somebody. It may be 4 or 5 degree separation tops, not the usual 6. But if everybody's just coming out and saying, "Wow, finally, we can get this load off our chest that yes, Jason Whitlock is a terrible human being," except for one. And as Dr. Edward M. Jackson Jr. of the Delaware State English Department used to say, there's always one, and that one is Sage Steele. She got on Twitter and saying, "Stephen A, you're better than this. This was difficult to listen to." And Sage Steele, she doesn't want to be black. What do you expect to say about a woman that literally just got mad because nobody liked her because they knew that she was just, she's not Whitlock. She's still very weird. But of course she was going to be a contrarian. Everybody knew she was going to be a contrarian. But both black sports journalists who have experience in that field are all saying, yes, Jason Whitlock is somebody that you really need to watch your back around and have your head on a swivel, because he will take you down like that. And for Stephen A to get on his case like that, it was well overdue. And hopefully this is the beginning of the end of that dude, taking up space in a field that he no longer belongs to. And Stephen A, again, he said, "You're a great writer, but you want to make yourself seen." And that's not even talking about, his physical appearance or whatever. He's just like, some people are just better off writing. And I struggle with that sometimes. I like to talk. I like to have a lot to say. And it's not that, I'm Whitlock, like, obviously, but I just feel like, just trying to, put my face out there so people can know who's writing for HBCU sports, who's, doing local basketball journalism in Delaware, and writing novels and all of that. People need to see you. And you can't hide behind anonymity as much as you want to, because believe it or not, I'm very shy. You may not believe it. Because I crack these jokes all the time. I do these vlogs, I do these live streams on HBCU sports. I'm very low key. I chill. I stick to myself. It's very hard to try to, be a public figure of sorts when you really don't want to be a public figure. You just want to do your work, be compensated well for it, live your life. And now in the way of the world of the 21st century where, shouts out to Facebook and Zuckerberg for the big lie about the pivot to video, which ruined journalism forever, probably. But yeah, I struggle with that. But at the same time, I'm not a dreadful individual like Whitlock. At least I don't think I am, But it was time for Whitlock to, be put out to pasture. And I'm very glad that Stephen A. did it because, and getting back to the thing about it being smoke season, going back to Cat and, bringing Stephen A. into it. I think there's something that we need to discuss, quite honestly. And as much as I admire Michelle Obama, like she's one of the most awesome people, that have come down the pike in terms of being like a public figure in many years. So, I mean, I'm a Michelle Obama fan, but in my personal opinion, when they go low, we go high was a huge mistake. And I'll tell you why. Granted, it's always, be the bigger person, turn the other cheek. But I say it all the time. I ain't got but two. And I'm not going to give myself whiplash turning my cheeks. And granted, it's always best to just let people be in their ignorant little bubbles or whatever. But every once in a while, you have to remind somebody that you're not the one or the two, that you're not somebody that they can play with. You're not somebody that they can insult. You're not somebody that they can just get over on. And they're not somebody that they should compare themselves to. You're not somebody that they should compare themselves to because you're in your own sphere. You're doing your own thing. You're comfortable in your skin. You're living life. You're doing everything that you want to do and being good at it. And some people can't stand it. So you got to remind them why they can't stand it every once in a while. So that's my take on that. I get that, that we should be nicer to people. We should be kinder to people. But some people are beyond that. There are some people that just, they can't be. And instead of trying to help them, it's honestly time that you start letting people know that their foolishness is not welcomed by any stretch of the imagination. Like, it's cool to be, outspoken. It's cool to have an opinion. It's cool to say what's on your mind. But if you're just one of those people that's just being an asshole to people just because you can be an asshole to people, you need to be called out on. And you can't, throw stones from a glass house, hide behind and hide your hands and not expect somebody to call you out on it. That's what a lot of people are missing. Like, for example, really quickly before I, because that was all I wanted to talk about on this particular episode, because I felt like, it was something that, it's not negative. I mean, not feeding into negativity, but it's something that needs to be addressed. In my day work for HBCU Sports, we're following a story right now where Florida A&M is, really upset. The alumni base is really upset with athletic director Tiffany Dawn Sykes because she went over their heads. They feel like, even though they're not paid to make these decisions, the athletic director is, with their new football coach. And there's going to be a meeting on Tuesday about said football coach hire. And people have said all kind of mean, degrading, nasty things about, AD Sykes that literally just, you wouldn't say this about her if she was a man. Like, there was a preacher. I'm not even going to get his name right because it's not important because he's just a dipshit. AD Sykes was joking around in the weight room with the Florida A&M football players. Mind you, Florida A&M just won the Celebration Bowl, so everybody should be happy. Everybody should be, this should be a joyous time for Florida A&M. But then, some people just like to turn joy into misery. And this alleged clergy is like, no, this is bad PR. Show us the work that you're looking for a new head coach. Show us that you're doing everything you can to make FAMU relevant. And it's like, bro, were you in Atlanta December 16th, seeing 41,000 people in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, one of the highest rated college football postseason games on television? I think having her team in that game is doing the work and getting the good PR. This is the type of shit that people wouldn't say about a man, but definitely jump through hoops to say about a woman. And every time I make this point when I, share something that I'm working on for HBCU Sports related to this, And shout out to my guy, Brandon King. He's done a great job reporting on it. We did a really good live stream on it as well. But people push back. They're like, no, she it's not because she's a woman. It's because, Florida A&M has these expectations. The last AD that y'all had didn't have meal plans for guys. The last AD y'all had couldn't get clearance, academic clearance for guys to play the first week of the season at North Carolina. Not North Carolina A&T, not North Carolina Central, but North Carolina Chapel Hill. You need all your guys on deck for that one, and your AD couldn't even bother to get most of your guys cleared in time for that debacle. Enter Tiffany Dawn Sykes. Everybody's Florida A&M's APR is up. If you're not familiar, APR is the the guideline that NCAA uses to make sure every kid is going to class and not just playing a sport on campus. Like, you still got to be the student part, the student athlete. FAMU's APR is raised under AD Sykes. They've won championships in football, volleyball, baseball. I mean, what else do you want? What else do you want? And it just really bothers me that that woman literally has to sit there and just take the abuse when she's just trying to do the best job that she can. And her years in athletic, compliance and, college administration, she's tremendous. Like, her work speaks for itself. So let the woman do her work. So that's why, I just want to get that off my chest because, granted, again, we're supposed to be nice to people, but you can't always be nice to people. And it's important to note that this is coming from personal experience. Not everybody's going to like it. And this is something that I had to learn because I always wanted to fit in with people. I always wanted to be the go along to get along guy. I always tried to be the people pleaser. And then when I realized that, whoever didn't like me wasn't going to change. And the likelihood of me liking people that I didn't like wasn't going to change. I had to grow up and just accept that, okay, my tribe probably looks different than the tribe that I think is cool, that the tribe that I think is popping. I mean, yeah, we're all like that. I mean, granted, we're adults now. Some of us, especially the one doing the show, is in his 40s. Other people are in their 30s, starting to figure out that you can only be who you are, and the people that will rock with you with regards to that will. The ones that don't, they don't matter. Because, why are you trying to impress them anyway? That's something I had to ask myself. Like, literally, there would be times when, I would just be tolerating, jokes that I knew were mean and cruel, people being disrespectful and shady behind my back and thinking it wouldn't get back to me and feeling like, okay, well, at least they acknowledge me. Then after I learned that being acknowledged doesn't make you a person, doesn't mean that the people really care about you and that you really got to start caring about yourself. It's like, okay, whatever. Like, some people, there are groups of people that thrive on being assholes, and I'm not an asshole. I mean, some people thrive on just being rude, mean, crude, and disrespectful. And there are people that, and that's just not my vibe. Granted, I've had moments in the past where I've lost my cool, I've lost my temper. I've said some things that I wish I could take back, but I can't. But just learning to be comfortable in your own skin, being cozy with who you are. Word to Beyonce. Comfortable in my skin. Cozy with who I am. I love myself. Goddamn. Cozy. And that's not the last bit of poetry I have for you guys tonight before I make my big announcement, because today, not only is Martin Luther King Day, Dr. King, one of the greatest people to ever walk this planet, his words are going to be twisted and used against him, by ridiculously daft white people who are going to, say that Dr. King wouldn't want you Negroes acting like this. When the reality is Dr. King was tired of everybody's shit by the time they killed him in 1968. So, but yeah, also not only is January 15th Dr. King's birthday, he would have been 95 today, but it is also the Founders Day of the very favorite Black Greek letter sorority, BRAC. I'm thinking about a Space Ghost Coast to Coast. Today is the Founders Day for the very first Black Greek letter organization in these United States. Well, the first woman-based one. That would be the lovely ladies of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, my personal favorites. And I've written a poem that I'd like to read for you now, for AKA Founders Day. It's called God Bless the K's. Pinky fingers high in the air, complete with a high-pitched squeal. The unread text? Well, that's just part of the deal. God bless the K's. The pretty girls in their 20 pearls, a sight for sore eyes. As long as they live, there will be Nissan Altimas to drive. God bless the K's. When the pink and green sachets by, you have to stop and stare. And if you're nice, she'll stop and flip her hair. God bless the K's. If an AKA is free, there is little doubt that a good time will be had. Just don't tell their spouse. God bless the K's. By Chris Stevens. I hope you enjoyed that. Shout out to all the lovely ladies at AKA, Shout out to my homegirl, Marisa, a couple other great AKAs. I know, I just had to mess with y'all for a little bit, but I love y'all. Of course, hashtag God bless the K's. It's a movement. I'm trying to make it. Feel free to use that hashtag on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Spill, all the other social media apps. God bless the K's. And that is going to do it for this edition of the Chris Stevens Writes YouTube show. Greatly appreciate it. God, I really need a name for this because that name is just too damn long. But anyway, my announcement is this is the first show of this week. Later on this week, I am pleased to be joined by my first official guest on this YouTube channel, my good brothers Roy Burton and Chris Domingo of the Broad Street Line radio show and podcast out of Philadelphia. They are going to join me, and we are going to preview the Royal Rumble and talk about the road to WrestleMania, how we would book it, what we expect out of Royal Rumble, what we can expect from WrestleMania, which is going to be in our neck of the woods. I'm in Delaware, Roy's in Jersey, Chris is in Philly. WrestleMania 40 is going to be at Lincoln Financial Field, first weekend in April. So we're very much looking forward to that. So we're going to preview the Royal Rumble, which of course sets us on the road to WrestleMania. So we're going to talk about it on later on this week. That episode will be ready. When it's ready, I will be glad to share that with y'all. So once again, thank y'all for watching the Chris Stevens Writes YouTube show. Somebody help me pick a name, please, please, please. All the social media stuff will be in contact information will be in the description below if you got a name for this show, because I really need one. So until the next time we speak, y'all be good or be good at it.